Well, the first one would really be to understand that it's not just translation. So, right, so like you're not saying we have this English content, let's get some translators to translate it and and put it on our blog, for example. Uh, when we say international SEO, what this really means on a tactical level, for example, is the way we do search intent analysis, and when we create a content brief for every single topic or keyword that we want to go after, right? You have to do the same exact thing for all of the content that you want to create, or you know transcreate, whether that's a real word, I'm not sure. But when I mean transcreate, I simply mean you create a new piece of content but that already exists in your English language on your blog, right? So but the thing is, you cannot simply create it by translating it. You actually have to create it from scratch, simply because the search patterns, the keyword patterns would also be different, and so would the search intent be for those keywords. So, for example, let's say we're targeting a keyword like uh, uh, um, how to do X with a particular product, right? Like a long tail keyword. So someone is searching for that, right? The Spanish alternative to that would be like very Spanish focused, right? Like totally translated version of it, because it's very conversational as a keyword, right? So it's like a long tail phrase that someone would say. So, but then on the other hand, there are also keywords that don't get translated, right? When people actually search for them. Like, for example, if I'm searching for email marketing, I would simply say email marketing. I wouldn't say anything else, right? Like, there's a lot of overlaps. Like, I might still be looking for Spanish content, but I'm still searching for email marketing in English. So, that's the point in terms of search intent and understanding, what topics do I need to really uh, like, what phrases to use, what phrases to translate, what phrases not to translate. All of that stuff goes into it. So that would be the first one, right? Like deciding that I actually have to think about the search intent of the topics one by one and not just try to translate all of the content. The second part would be the second tip is to think of it like a strategy from scratch. So imagine that you're targeting a new set of searchers uh, who have a different kind of pain points, motivations, all of those different kind of things, and then you build a separate strategy for them, right? And that means, for example, if you break that down, that means you hire a strategist that knows that region, that knows that language, that knows the audience that live within that region, right? This is exactly what we did in terms of active campaign. We assembled a team for each of the 5 regions that we were targeting, 4 regions, I think. So like for every single region, we had a separate squad of people working together, right? So when we say for the Italian squad, there was an Italian strategist who knew how to do SEO and create content for Italian people, right? So it's like building a complete new strategy for different regions, instead of just saying, hey, we created these blog pages that drive some traffic, let's just translate. For the most part, at least in my experience, what I've seen companies typically getting confused with is the complexity of the Hreflang tag. So that is a technical tag that we put for search engines to know which content is for which language and for which region, right? So, but I don't think it's that hard, really. I think the actual thing, and this is perhaps again some sort of a paradox that companies get into, which is that they spend a lot of time thinking about those technical elements, which they can really just figure out by using a particular tool, for example, to just crawl their site and say, hey, these are the errors, fix them, right? That part, like fixing those Hreflang errors, isn't that technical, it isn't that hard. So they spend a lot of time thinking about that, maybe in terms of fear, or for example, after they've done that, they would consistently be thinking about that, running multiple crawls and doing a lot of stuff to just figure it out. And of course, that is a good thing, but of course, don't just overthink it all the time. Um, at the same time, they spend very little time about in terms of building a new strategy for those regions, exactly as I mentioned. So, like what is actually important is spending less time in, which is, how can I create a strategy that is very customized towards this new set of searches that I want to attract.
Mhm.
And on the other hand, they're getting totally mind boggled with this, all of this technical items.
Mhm.
So my recommendation would be just keep things simple. If you have created a lot of content um, in English and that is performing, just imagine you're new to French. Let's say you're starting a totally new website, right? Just imagine it like that. You're saying, I have the same product, but just imagine that I've never created a website. I don't have any content. I'm not expanding to French market. I'm actually just
Mhm.
starting in French market for the first time, right? What would you do? You would do exactly the same thing as you did in English market. Some of the best practices, for example, start with bottom of the funnel pages that have proven to be converting well for you, right? Start to get a few pages transcreated, right? And then try to put some pages out there, and then put the Hreflang tag, figure things out, just clean up your website from a technical hygiene perspective, and keep things simple. Just put some of the pages under a specific subdirectory, right? So, for example, ActiveCampaign would have activecampaign.com/es, right? Like for Spanish content, or slash
Mhm.
I think IT for Italian content. So all of that content would reside on their website in different folders.
Mhm.
So just, if you already have a lot of English content and it is performing well for your English audiences, that can be used as an indicator to say what content to prioritize to transcreate into different regions based on all of the data that you've already collected, right? So
Mhm.
just start simple. Just like, for example, in a spreadsheet, if you have all of the data that says, hey, these 5 pages drive about 50% of the website's conversions in English, right? Can you create those pages in French, Spanish, and other markets that you want to grow into? Just test it with those pages, and then you can figure things out as you grow. So at one point, of course, as soon as you expand from there, your objective would be to create new content that might not even exist in English, but Spanish people need it, and French people need it, and right, like other
Mhm.
regions need it. So, but for the start, I would just say, just make sure you get started and
Mhm.
start from the pages that you've seen performing well in the past in English.